currently heading on a flight from JFK to Hong Kong on Cathay Pacific. I haven't flown with them for like 5 years, but I heard their economy is not as good as it used to be, so let's see.
When it comes to flying to Hong Kong, Cathay Pacific is one of the only airlines that flies directly there. The boarding process was very well organized and it wasn't chaotic at all. The flight attendants direct you to which side you need to be on, so that was great. This is their first class seats, it looks pretty nice, lots of privacy. And then the next section of the plane is their premium economy seats, which have a little more space than economy. And finally, towards the middle and back of the plane, we reach the economy section. In terms of the cushion on the seats, I would say the seats are a little bit hard and uncomfortable, especially for a 15.5-hour flight. There was a good amount of leg room, especially for my knees and my legs to stretch out, but I found that the seats were a little bit narrow for me. I unfortunately have to rate the comfort of the seats at a 4 out of 10. Just for reference, I'm basing this on my size. I am 6 feet tall and 210 pounds. So it may be more comfortable for someone who is a little bit smaller. There's a lot of room for improvement here, and the airlines need to take this into consideration because it's a very long flight. It's 15.5 hours long. There's not much to say about their tray table except that it's very compact, so they designed it well in order to save space on the flight. Their overhead bin space is kind of small, so keep that in mind for carry-ons. You do get a pillow next to your seat, however, it appeared to be used and kind of worn out. And of course a warm blanket, which was fine. It gets pretty chilly at certain points on this flight. This is pretty smart. Right above the tray table is another smaller tray area where you can put your phone on it to watch videos, and there's also a cup holder for drinks. You also get headphones. They were a little retro, a little outdated, like the ones you see from the 80s when the Walkman just came out, but they did the job. The audio quality was okay. There are unfortunately no outlets. Some planes have them so that you can charge your devices like your phone. This one does not. In terms of the entertainment selection, it wasn't great here. There were a few good movies and a few good shows, but you really had to look to find them, and there were a lot of terrible ones, or there were a lot of Chinese ones that you had to siphon through and filter through. I would say this area is where the US airlines do better in. They have a better selection of movies and TV shows. Overall, I would have to rate the amenities as a 5 out of 10 experience. I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement here. Even though this is a economy review, there are plenty of airlines that do economy very well, such as ANA or Japan Airlines, so this airline should take notes. The flight takeoff was fine. It really didn't have much turbulence. Shortly afterwards, they do start you with a snack. It's peanuts, which were okay, and you can have as many as you like. One really nice thing about this flight is that if you do drink, you can have as much top shelf liquor and beers as you want without getting charged anything. It's included in the price of the flight. I had whiskey here, which was great. Taking a look at the menu, it's pretty extensive and they have a few different options. For lunch, I was intending on getting the beef with preserved mustard greens and jasmine rice. But unfortunately, I was not able to get that because they simply ran out. And that's one of the biggest negatives about flying in economy. You're one of the last ones to be served, so if they run out of a meal, you won't get it. So instead, I ended up with their braised chicken thighs with mashed potatoes, and also they had a potato salad with lox as well. And just a Coke Zero to have with my meal. Let's start with the chicken thighs and mashed potatoes. This is a close-up of what it looks like. In terms of how it tasted, the first bite of the chicken thigh was a little dry in the middle. And when I had a few other pieces, I realized that was not the case for all of them. It was actually pretty good. The mashed potatoes were really good. They did a great job with that. No complaints whatsoever there. This sauce with the chicken thighs was phenomenal. Next one up is their lox and the potato salad. This is a close-up of what it looks like. So the lox was smoked and it was very good. It's typically what you find at a New York City bagel shop. The potato salad was great as well, creamy, and the potatoes were cooked well. They also gave you some cheese, some Gouda, and I put it on the cracker and had that, and that was very good. They also gave some bread. I put a little bit of butter on there before I ate it, and it was okay. So for dessert, they gave us a bar of the Haagen-Dazs ice cream, chocolate, and vanilla. It was still kind of frozen when I bit into it, so just be careful. You don't want to chip your tooth. I'm being serious. So Wi-Fi is not included on this flight if you're flying economy. If you're first class, yes, it is free. So the Wi-Fi was very slow. I did a speed test on the right-hand side, as you can see. And I did make a purchase for Wi-Fi that was supposed to last for the entire duration of the flight. It was about $20. Unfortunately, it worked for the first 45 minutes and ceased to work after that. So that was really, really disappointing. Just could not reconnect after that. So I just kind of watched mostly movies on the flight. Every time they made an announcement, I could not hear it on my headphones, and I couldn't really hear it on the speakers as well. It just wasn't loud enough and there was a lot of background noise. Next, let's talk about their customer service, which is an important part of a flight. I thought that the flight attendants and staff members here were extremely courteous. They're really nice and very helpful. They came right away when you waved them down, even when they're busy. And there's also a button you can press to request them. They came pretty quickly as well. They gave you zero attitude. They were extremely kind, unlike many other flight attendants on US carriers. For this reason, I have to rate their customer service as a 8.5 out of 10. The only other time I've had better customer service was when I flew Japan Airlines, hence the non-perfect score. But yes, I would say they're very well trained in this area and they handle customer interactions very well. If you're still a little hungry after your main meals, you can request as much instant noodles as you want on the flight. And they're good quality too, one of the better ones I've had. I don't know about everyone else, but this is a very nostalgic meal for me. And I grew up eating it as a kid and throughout high school and college, so I'm really glad they had this on the flight. You just have to call over and request a flight attendant, and after that, it takes about 5 minutes for them to make it and bring it to you. You can also request a banana and a variety of different snacks, which I thought were all pretty mediocre. But I guess you can't complain if it's all free. And this is the inside of what the bathroom looked like, pretty typical, nothing that stands out too much. In the economy section from both ends, from the front and the back, there were about 5 different bathrooms you can use, so never found availability to be an issue. It was starting to wind down, and at a certain point they do shut off the lights just so that people can sleep during the flight. There is an option on your screen that you can press, and it's sort of like a night light, but you can turn it on in order to do any kind of reading that you might want to when the lights shut off. About halfway into the flight, they will start serving you dinner. This was again not what I wanted. I wanted the stir-fried chicken with ginger and green onions, but they ran out of that. So instead, what was left over was their pulled pork with orzo pasta. It was served with some bread, mixed fruit, a raspberry peach rice pudding, and some tea. Although it was not what I wanted, the pulled pork and the orzo pasta was great. Really nice flavors going on in there. The bread was kind of hard and not great at all, a little bit different than the other bread I had earlier for lunch. I have to say the raspberry peach rice pudding was phenomenal. It's one of the best things I've ever had on a flight, and it's up to par with like a restaurant. I would have to rate the food on this flight as an 8 out of 10, and it would have been a little bit higher, maybe 8.5 out of 10, if it wasn't for the fact that I was not able to get the meals that I wanted, so I do consider availability of options. But they serve really good food considering it's economy and it's on a flight as well. They did a great job. If the person in front of you reclines a chair back, you really don't have a lot of space and it makes watching TV a little awkward, but you can pull up your screen like so, and it makes the viewing experience a little bit better. When we finally touched down and started landing, I was relieved because sitting on that hard seat for 15.5 hours is not pleasant and your bottom starts hurting after a while. So just to conclude, the seats were not comfortable, the amenities were kind of average, but the food and customer service were phenomenal. So compared to flying on Cathay about 5 years ago, the experience was more or less about the same. I think that if they truly want to be a great airline, they need to improve the comforts of their seats, even if it means spending a little bit of money to upgrade it. I would have to rate the overall experience as a whole on this flight as a 6.5 out of 10. It's a decent airline. They excel in certain areas and they need to improve in other areas. And it's one of your only few direct options to fly to Hong Kong.